The same way, the constitution plays a very important role in building the nation, building the society, and it helps in giving a kind of the guidance for the whole nation. Because the constitution is very much important. Because the constitution is not a document which has been created in one day. It is a document which has evolved from over a long period of time. Now, even before the independence, we had 1919 Act, we had 1935 Government of India Act, which played a role of a constitution in the pre-independence era. So when the British left this country, they also provided us an opportunity to have our own constitution. Because for any institution or for any nation to function, they need certain principles, they need certain guidelines, uh, they need the total framework for the functioning of the particular system or a nation. So the Britishers felt that whatever the constitution they had at that particular point of time in the pre-independence era, they felt that constitution was based on the needs of that particular society, and that was based again on the nature of the governance of the British. But after we got independence, and after the independence was declared to us, they also felt that India, as an independent country, it also needs its own constitution, because that constitution will be able to talk about the aspirations of the future nation, future generation. So, in that context, the British government was able to constitute a constituent assembly, and under that constituent assembly, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, the chairman of drafting committee, he was given the responsibility of drafting the whole constitution, and he has in forming the constitution and making the constitution. So once we got the constitution, once the constitution was accepted, and when the constitution became the law of this country on 26 Jan 1950, from that day onwards, it has become the law of this country. And we know that we call the constitution as the basic law. Now, any laws in this country, any laws which are framed in this country, that is based on the constitution. That law should be within the purview of the constitution. We call the basic structure, whatever the constitution, whatever we call as the basic structure of the constitution. So that basic structure, plays a very important role, and it also, becomes a blueprint for this country. And if you look at the constitution, that constitution not only creates institutions, the constitution not only declares the roles of different institutions and different organizations in building the nation, it also provides a blueprint for the government. It helps the government in identifying the needs of the society, and it also helps for the government to identify the primary areas where the government is supposed to work. So that is why, if you look at the whole constitution, we have the largest constitution. Presently, we have more than 440 articles. But out of all those articles, there are certain articles, there are certain provisions, and there are certain parts which plays a very major role in building this nation. So in that context, if you look at the preamble, the introductory part of the constitution, the fundamental rights, the directive principles, and the fundamental duties, these are the most important the parts in the constitution which plays a very important role. Now, if you look at the preamble, that preamble, it talks about the objectives of this country, the nature of this country. So it talks about what kind of a country we are going to have. We know that the preamble says that we, the people of India, have solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, and republic. That means it says this is the kind of a country we are going to build. We are going to build which is a nation which is secular, which is democratic, which is republic. So this is the kind of the nation we want to be, socialist, which is the nation we are going to build. And through this, what is that we are going to build? What is that we are going to do? So then it says that it is through this we are going to establish the justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, and unity. So all these things, giving socio-economic and political equality and liberty. So these are all the important things, important aspects which the government is supposed to focus. And the fundamental rights talks about what exactly the government should be able to provide to its people. And the duty talks about what exactly the role of the individuals, the role of the citizens of this country towards its nation. So in that context, we have various provisions in the Constitution which helps the government, which helps the whole system to establish the better nation and a better society. And the Constitution always remains relevant, because Constitution is not a dead document. Constitution does not talk about only the past. The Constitution does not talk about only the future. The Constitution also talks about the present situation. That means we have the important provision in the Constitution which talks about what we call as an amendment provision. So in the Constitution we have that amendment provision because the Constitution makers knew that no constitution in this world can remain stagnant. No constitution in this country can remain a permanent document. Constitution is something which has to change according to the needs and the times. It has to change according to the needs of the people, the needs of the nation. The needs which we had in the pre-independence era is completely different from the needs what we have today. And if you look at the pre-independence era and the present situation, completely the needs and the nature of this whole society has changed. So that is why in that context, we have this amendment provision in the Constitution, which says that you can bring about certain changes in the Constitution without changing the basic structure of the Constitution, and that changes should be able to provide the provisions which can help the society to get what it wants, to move ahead. So in that way, that is why I say that the Constitution always remains relevant. And if you look at the provisions which we had in the Constitution and which we have in the Constitution, it clearly delegates the powers or gives the powers to the different institutions in this country, the different organizations which it has created. Now we all know that. Now, for example, we all say that the government plays a very important role. The government is everything. The government is supreme. So from a layman to a professor in the university, we all synonymously use the word government and legislature. We synonymously use both. We mean that government and legislature is the same, one and same, but it is not so. According to the Constitution of India, government is not only legislature. Legislature is a part of the government. Government consists of other important organs like executive and judiciary. And the Constitution has given different powers and functions to these three different organs of the government. The legislature plays a very important role in legislating or making laws. The executive plays a role of executing the laws which has been made by the legislature. And judiciary plays a role where it checks whether the laws made by the legislature is within the purview of the Constitution and is anything unconstitutional. And if anything is unconstitutional, anything is out of the purview of the Constitution, the courts have the right to direct the government to say that these laws is not valid. So in that way, the different organs have been given the different functions and duty. I mean, it has been given. They have been given with different functions. So in that way, every organ have their own duty to perform. They have their own functions to do. So in that context, if you look at, every organ has a very important role to play. And if you look at how the Constitution plays a very important role, how it is relevant today, the Constitution makers, they have made something what we call the basic structure. For example, we have something called as the federal structure. Ours is not a unitary form of government. Unitary form of government means having only one set of government. That is one government at the center. We have what we call as a federal structure of government. When you say what is federal structure of government, federal structure of government is like having two governments, one at the national level, the other one at the state. That is one at the central level, the other at the state level, and what a common man call it as central government and state government. And these two governments have the different functions, or they have the power to certain extent. The union government has power to certain extent, and the state government also have the power to certain extent, and where the constitution has clearly given the power. Then we have the three parts in the constitution, which we call it as where the we call it as the union list, the state list, and the concurrent list, where the union government can play a role, or union government can make laws where which comes under the union list. And in the concurrent list means where both state and union government both can make a laws. State list means where only the state government can make laws. There are list of subjects which the state government can make laws, so that is given under the state list. There are list of subjects where the union government can make a law, that comes under the union list. And that is something called as concurrent list, where both the governments can make a laws in those the list. And when there's a clash between state and union, always the union government laws prevail. So in that way, we call it as, in a common man's language, we call it as the division of powers. There is a clear division of powers between the union and state government. See, this concept, how relevant it is today, how much relevant it is today, because in the past few years, you find that how central government is becoming more powerful. Central government is becoming more powerful. Central government is interfering into the state affairs. Now, for example, again, there is a distribution of taxes between the union and state government. There are certain taxes which used to be collected by the state government, and certain taxes which used to be collected by the union government. But today you find that how the union government have become so powerful, the whole taxation power, now the union government is trying to take away from the state in the form of GST. And that is why, recently also we had issues from all the states, where every state was claiming that, we are not getting our share. Every state pays the taxes, collect the taxes and give it to the central government, and again, where they're going to give it back to the state government in order to look into the different the expenditure or spendings. But the union government is collecting the taxes, taking the taxes from state government, but they're not giving it back to the state government. And now the state governments are facing the huge crisis to take care of to deliver the responsibilities which the constitution has given. So here, the constitution, how clearly, it says that, there is a central government which has a role, there is a state government which has a role to play. So the both governments should not interfere. But today, and again, always, to build a better nation, to build the better society, there should always be a coordination between the union and state government. That is why this division of powers has been created, in order to establish the better understanding and better relationship between the union and state government. There was a clear distribution of powers between the union and state. But today, because the union government, they are trying to override that, and now the union government want to snatch away all the powers of the state government. And today you find we have a kind of conflicts between the state and union government. And recently we were talking about the union government was talking about the NRC, that is CA, and all those things, all those issues. There are many governments like the Kerala, the West Bengal government. They were telling that no, we don't want to execute that. We don't want to implement that policy. We don't want to implement that policy. And again, it is due to the various ideological reasons. And recently we had this the Land Reforms Act, and even in that Land Reforms Act also, and even in the Farms Act, all the farmers, the farmers came onto the streets. Even at that particular point of time, you find many state governments were saying that we don't want to implement those policies which the union government wanted to execute in terms of that particular issues. See, in that context, you find, when a union government tries to override the state government, then the conflict arises. So that is why the constitution makers knew that these kind of the crisis could arrive in the future. That is why, they created the division of powers between the union and state. and that powers, that was able to make both state government and central government, very comfortable in terms of delivering what they were supposed to. So in this context, you know that how relevant the constitution is, because we have to understand that without a framework of law, nobody can be disciplined. So they knew that you cannot discipline the governments, it may be a state or union government, without giving them the responsibility, and also putting some kind of having some kind of control on these two governments. So in the same, in the context, we have, for example, the directive principle of state policy. When you look at the government, if you look at after the independence, we got constitution in 1950, and from 1950 to 70, almost 2 decades in this country, the government did not have any policies that is, what we say, the pro people policies, or the policies to eradicate the poverty. The policies are what we call today as a social welfare measures. They were not even a single social welfare policies until 1970s. But by the 1970s, they felt that there is a necessary and a need to come out with the social welfare measures, to come out with certain policies which helps all the groups, all the sections of the society. And that is why, you find that based on the directive principles of state policy. So what is the directive principle of state policy? Directive principle of state policy is something, which is a kind of a directions. When the legislature, what we common man call it as a government. So when a legislature is making a law, so what are the issues which has to be prioritized, or where the government should give the priority? What are the issues has to be taken on the basis of priority? So that is what the directive principle says. The directive principle says that when the government is making any law, those laws should be on the basis of the directives given in the constitution. And if you look at, for example, when I want to share some of the directives, what the directive says, for example, in the directive principle of state policy, one article says that within 10 years, every child below 14 years should be given the education. So today, even after 70 years, in 1956, our literacy rate was just 16%. But today we have 74% of literacy. We could not even achieve 100%, but Constitution says that within 10 years. So we know that the government should have given the priority, both state and union government should have been given the priority to education. It should have made a policies which will help every individual in this country to get education. But they could not do it because, directive principles, they are not enforceable. Enforceable means you cannot, if the government does not do it, you cannot go to the court. Now, for example, fundamental rights. Fundamental rights are enforceable. If any of your fundamental right is violated, you can go to the court and get the relief. But directive principles are not so. They are not enforceable. You cannot challenge against the government in any court of law when they don't implement those policies. So that is why, after almost 5-6 decades, we felt that education is important. That is why, we brought a Right to Education Act. And in the same directive principles, it says that, the wealth of this country should not be allowed to be concentrated only with few individuals. That means the wealth of this country should be equally distributed. When you say wealth, it includes everything: the natural resources, the land, the resources, everything. So the Constitution says, so whatever the resources we have in this country, it should not be concentrated with only few people. It should be equally distributed among the citizens of this country. And that is how, the Land Ceiling Act was brought. But again, how far it has been, the government has succeeded in implementing this, again, it is a failure, because again, that particular part was not enforceable, because directive principles are not enforceable. It is only directives the government can do or no. Now, for example, just yesterday and day before yesterday, we had this the cow slaughtering bill anti-cow slaughtering bill in the Assembly of Karnataka. See, the same thing has been also given in the Directive Principles. It says that the government should bring about the prohibition. I mean, to make a laws which puts an end to the slaughtering of the cows and calves. So that has given a direction. See, now the government has taken so many years to think in that particular way, and again the government may do it or may not. See, in that, and again the same Directive Principles talks about bringing in prohibition. That is to put an end to all kind of the alcohol, the drugs, or any kind of things which will have an impact on our mental and physical body. So in that context, they are the principles which the government should follow. That is, the government should give the priority to this, and it talks about the women empowerment. The Directive Principle says that you should make a law in such a way that where the women should be empowered. You should pay equal wages for equal work. You should not, for example, the abolition of child labor is based on the Directive Principle. So in that way, this Directive Principle, see, look at how relevant are those things even in today's context. If the government is able to execute or implement those, the provisions, I think in maximum 10 to 20 years, the India can become self-reliant. India can become a developed. That is what Ambedkar, when submitting the constitution to the parliament, that is on 26 November 1949, he says, if this constitution is implemented as it is for just 10 years, he says that India can become the most developed country in the world. Just 10 years. Why 10 years? That is the kind of provisions we have in the constitution. That is, it has given solution to all the existing problems. So that is why that constitution, it always remains relevant, because it talks about the existing issues. It also provides the solution for the existing issues. And if you look at, for example, again, if you come back to if you go to the fundamental rights, how important and how relevant even that part even today. Probably without the fundamental right, today we could have not been in this program. We could have not been sitting in this webinar, because that rights which the Constitution, which the fundamental rights in the part in the Constitution has given to us, it is a right which every individual has. Today, any right which we are enjoying, they are the product of our Constitution. That is because of the Constitution we have. So that always, will be relevant. Whenever our rights are violated, we talk about violation of human rights. But it is the duty of the Constitution to see that human rights, the basic rights of every individual, protected at every point of time. So that talks about the relevance. And the Constitution, as I told you earlier, it is like a blueprint. It is like how the government can build a better nation. So to build India into a better nation, what are the things the government should focus on? What are the issues the government should look into? Now, for example, we are talking about secularism. So today, find that how the concept of secularism is becoming more and more relevant, because there is an onslaught on that particular issue. There was a time when the concept of secularism was misused to polarize different communities, different religions in a particular way. And even today also, the same concept of secularism is also used to polarize the different groups. But that is not what secularism, the Constitution speaks about. What is the secularism, or what is the concept of secularism which our Constitution speaks? Our Constitution, the concept of secularism is like, it is giving an individual a freedom of following any religion, any belief which he believes, following his own religion and also respecting the other religion. When you say secularism is not about protecting one religion and going on on the onslaught on the other religion or attacking the other religion. Secularism is about treating every religion equally, following your religion and respecting the other religion. Because religion is something it's a very personal choice. It is about my personal life. It is not something to be shown. I mean, in the public. It is something which is to be followed by an individual for his personal development, So in that context, today you find how the constitution remains relevant even today, because no, again, for example, today we have this elections, concept of elections. The same thing, we have something called as election commission, which has been created by the Constitution of India. So the Constitution, uh, did not only think about that particular time, that particular point of time. The Constitution was made between 1947 and 1950. So the Constitution did not only focus on the issues which were at that particular point of time. They could also, visualize. They also had a vision for the future generation, for the future, and that is why, if you look at the Constitution, even if you read the Constitution even today, it feels like that maybe that Constitution could have written yesterday or few days ago, because that talks about the issues even which are relevant today. So it also talks about the solutions for that issues which are relevant today, but which were not an issues today, which were not relevant at that point of time, but still the Constitution was able to frame those issues, in advance, because that was a kind of vision our Constitution makers had. That means while making a Constitution, you're not thinking about only the relevant system society, you're also thinking about the society of the future society. You should be able to predict the problems of the future, and you should also be able to come out with the solution for those particular problems. So in that context, you find the Constitution, always remains relevant, and it always plays a very important role. And if you look at in the present scenario, I think that the Constitution has a very important role to play, because many a times, when I look at the way the government is functioning, the way the politicians, the legislature is functioning, I feel that these people have forgot that we have a Constitution. Now the Constitution has clearly given different functions to different organs, and there is a process, there is a procedure about how each organ has to behave. But if you look at the way that today's legislatures are behaving, the laws, when you're making any law in this country, that law is going to be concerned with every citizen of this country, and the citizens of this country are the stakeholders. We have 130 plus crore population in this country. So when you're making any law, this law is going to directly or indirectly influence all these 130 crore people in this country. So while you're making a law, that means you're talking about the decision which is going to have an impact on all the people in this country. So when you're making any law, it is the responsibility of the government, to see that they take the opinion of the people. When I say the opinion of the people, it is not about coming and asking every individual. It is not possible. When you say opinion, for example, when you talk about central government, we have elected our government. We have the legislature, that is the union government, that is Lok Sabha, and we have elected our representative to the Lok Sabha. 28 people have been elected to the Karnataka. That means, all the 6 crore of this Karnataka people will not be able to participate in the governance. So we are authorizing these 28 members to involve in the decision making, and we have authorized those people to take decisions and to convey our opinion to the Lok Sabha, to the parliament. That means when you're making any law, it is a duty of the government to have a discussion in the parliament. When you are discussing any issue in the parliament, that means that you are going to talk about the pros and cons of any bill or any act or any law which the parliament proposes. And based on the opinions, any law, you cannot say that will have an 100% positive impact. or any law, you cannot say that it is going to have 100% negative impact. There will be both positive as well as negative impact. But it is about to assess the intensity of the negativity and the intensity of the positivity. What is the intensity of the positive impact and what is the intensity of the negative impact? So, you cannot make any law which will be able to make 100% people happy. And you cannot convince 100% of people, 100% people. In a democracy, what is a democracy? Democracy means it's the government of majority, or it is about the opinion of the majority. So in the parliament, the people who are our representatives, in the assemblies, the MLAs who are our representatives, they have to come out with their own opinion, which we call as the opinion of the people. And if whatever the majority people, 50+% of opinion, anybody who accepts 50+% accept, then that kind of the decisions should be or can be accepted. But if you look at our functioning of our parliament and assemblies, especially in the recent times, no bills and no issues have been discussed in the parliament and assembly. In just 1 day, 2 days, they simply they don't even introduce a bill in the assembly. They simply they read out the bill and they say, okay, voice vote, they pass. There is not even a discussion about it. You take any major laws, there was not even a discussion about it. See, it's not about whether to implement or not implement. At least you should have a discussion. That is the spirit of a democracy. A democracy means where you have an opportunity for your opinion. You can come out with your own opinion, and your opinion, whether you consider it is not, it is a different issue. And respecting and accepting the majority opinion is what democracy is. But if you look at both the union parliament as well as state legislatures today, there is no discussion going on in the assembly. There is no discussion going on in the parliament. You may talk about any bill. There is no discussion. In a hurry-burry, they place a bill, they pass it, or they defeat it. But Constitution clearly says that there is a procedure to pass a bill. There is a procedure to make a law. So that is what relevance is. And the legislature, it clearly says to pass any bill, there are particular procedures which it has to go through. And there is there is a concept called ordinance. But today, if you look at the states and union government, they have passed many laws through the ordinance. Ordinance is a kind of a power which has been given to the president and the governor. Whenever there is no the assembly in session or parliament in session, and when there is a urgency to make any law, and at that particular point of time, the president in the union and the governor in the state can pass an ordinance, can issue an ordinance. That means they can make a law which is going to be temporary, the maximum 6 months. And once the assembly or parliament comes into existence, then again they have to discuss that bill, and again it to be put into the voting, and then on the basis of the majority opinion, the bill or that law has to be continued or discarded. But today, if you look at the most of the laws have been passed through the process of ordinance. It is against the spirit and principle of democracy. So if you look at so how relevant even today the Constitution is. It is very much relevant, because if you look at those procedures and process, they have been made looking into the whole system. They have been made for the better governance, to have a better governance, and to have some kind of accountability and transparency. But today you find that the present governments and present legislatures have failed. The legislatures are the people, our MLAs and our MPs are the people who are supposed to be the voice of us. So for example, I am electing some MLA or MP, that means he is my voice. He has to speak in the parliament, he has to speak in the assembly. But today you find that what kind of legislatures we have. They sit in the assembly, they sit in the parliament, they snore. They don't even participate in the discussion. They sleep. They come out, they mark their attendance and they come out because they want to get their benefits. See, in that context, the constitution, for example, that we have a concept of upper house, the Rajya Sabha in the union government and the Vidhana Parishad in the state government, the state level. See, these two houses were created with a larger interest, because the constitution makers felt that there are experts in various fields, there are knowledgeable people, there are experienced people in all the fields. So these people should be taken into the upper house, and these people should be able to govern the people. I mean, help the people in the lower house, that is Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha, in order to make better laws. And we have many people who are inexperienced. We have many people who are even who are not educated. They have less experience, less knowledge about the relevant issues. So they may not be able to make the good laws. So it is the members in the Rajya Sabha who are learned, experienced, knowledgeable, who should be able to assist, help these people in making laws. But today, if you look at the upper house, have become the backdoor entry to the failed politicians. Some people who could not succeed in the elections, they use the upper house as a backdoor entry to the legislature. They neither have any expertise, they neither have any experience, they're neither good at anything. But still, just today, you find the membership of the upper house as it has become more of an ornamental, just to gain certain benefits, just to call yourself as a legislator, an MLC or an MP of the Rajya Sabha or MLC of the Vidhana Sabha, Vidhana Parishad. You want to become that. See, that is why you know that how the constitution important, because the constitution it always guides the society, it always guides the government at every point of time. It plays a very vital role, very important role, because it acts like a as I told you earlier, like a blueprint. It's like a plan for the future. Constitution is something which guides the legislature, which guides the executive, which guides the judiciary, and which has given immense powers to all these governments. But the tragedy is, you find our governments, it may be union government or it may be state government, they selectively become powerful and they selectively become weak. See, the legislature is so powerful, they can do anything. For example, I can give one example. One fine day, suddenly our prime minister comes, he stands before a mic and he says that from now, from this second onwards, from this moment onwards, the currency, the money which you have in your pocket is no more a money, it is just a paper. Just one word by the prime minister, and the next minute that the paper which you used to believe that it is a money, it is having certain value, suddenly becomes a paper. See, that is the kind of a power the legislature has. It can make laws on any issues. So you find they become powerful only on certain selective issues, and on certain issues they become so weak. That is why we say, see, look at our government, so weak it is. See, the government is neither weak nor powerful. Always the people who come there, the people who occupy the chair, depending on them, the government becomes weak or strong. The issues which they prefer, they become very weak in executing those issues. And the issues they don't prefer, they become very weak in executing. Now, for example, we have any system, for example, even judiciary. In judiciary, somebody get arrested and on the priority basis, just a day or two, he gets a bail. And some people who are arrested, they are kept in jail for months together, years together, they don't get even a hearing, forget about the bail. So you selectively become powerful, selectively become weak. But constitution, it says that, it has put certain kind of restrictions, and it has given the extent of powers for every organ. So when you look at the constitution, only then we will be able to understand what exactly the power the constitution is given to different organs or different institutions. So in that context, in the present scenario, the constitution, it plays a very important role. But today I feel that we have failed to understand. Our legislatures have failed to understand that we have a constitution. Now, the one example I want to just share. Our preamble says that we are a socialist. We are a socialist. Socialist means whatever the means of production, distribution, and maintenance of the wealth in this country, that will be controlled by the government. And there will be certain areas where you also have the role of the private individuals. But the major industries, the major areas will be controlled by the government itself. So we will have the government as well as private role. But today, if you look at practically, India has no more remained as a socialist. We have become today a complete capitalist nation. Today, you find that the government is trying to escape from all the roles. Today, all the public sector units have been shut down. They have been closed by giving a number of reasons. So the government want to escape from the responsibility. It is the government's responsibility to create employment. It's the government responsibility to provide education. It's the government responsibility to create wealth. It's the government responsibility to provide you an opportunity to earn. But today, the government is trying to escape from that. And just to want to escape from that, you find that they are either shutting down or they are privatizing the what we call public sectors. But the constitution says it is not so. It is the duty of the government to look into that. That is why the government is, when the government player want to play a major role, then what is the need of the government? What is the need of our legislatures? Why we have a legislature is because our legislatures have a responsibility. And the legislatures, the government is not providing us whatever we want, whatever we demand for charity. No. Whatever we get in this country, you pay for it. We pay taxes. And many people, I've heard many arguments where people say that only super rich pay taxes. These ordinary people, common man. Why the social welfare measure should be? Today, find how the governments are cutting down the social welfare programs, saying that it is waste of money. Why should the government, spend money for the poor at the cost of the rich? So we have a myth that only the rich pay taxes, only the rich pay highest tax. But to your information, we have the two forms of taxation: the direct and indirect taxes. The direct taxes, of course, the rich people pay, but the indirect taxes, every Indian pay. You buy a pen, you pay a tax on it. You go for a movie, you pay a tax on it. You go for an hotel, you pay a tax for it. That means every one of us, every poor man, even who is earning 10 rupees a day, is also paying a tax. And that, the percentage of the tax which the government gets is the highest percentage comes from the indirect tax. Because you pay on everything. You pay for everything. You spend most of your money on these indirect taxes. So that is why why the government should provide free. Why the government should take care of the farmers, the poor? No, you're not freely taking care of them. You're being paid for that. The people pay the tax. And when you say you can say the government, the state has developed only when every individual in the country has developed. So it is the responsibility of the government. Recently, I heard a politician saying that no, we the government have not come here to provide you the roads, power, this. We have come here to protect this the culture of this country. The constitution has not given an opportunity for the legislatures to get elected, not only to protect culture. The main intention is to provide all the needs for the people. The culture is a very different aspect. It's a very emotional and personal issue where every individual, of course, will play a role in that. But the government's duty is to provide the basic needs. So that is why you find the constitution always remains important and relevant, because it talks about how the government should function, how it has to meet the ends of the people, how it fulfills the desires of the people. So that is why, the constitution plays a very important role, not only in India, in the whole world. The constitution of those countries that played a very important role in the evolution of that society as well as the nation. It is the quality of the people. It is the quality of the constitution. It is the quality of our different organizations which has been created by the constitution, which defines the nation, which makes the nation. So that is why, the constitution of India always remains important, always remains relevant. So it is the right time for us to, I think, to know and to understand what exactly the constitution is, because many of us even don't know what exactly the constitution is, what are the provisions have been given in the constitution. So I think in this context, even today, the constitution is relevant, because even today, a huge number of people in this country are still, not able to get 3 meals a day. Even today, there are crores of people who are not able to even get basic education. Even there are today crores of people in this country today who are not able to get employment. There are crores of people who are surviving just with a 2,000 rupees income every month. So the constitution's duty is to see that all these issues are resolved, and that responsibility has been given to the different organs of the government by the constitution. So the constitution remains relevant until we overcome all the issues, all the problems. So it is the responsibility of not only the legislature, executive, judiciary to understand the constitution. It is also responsibility of every individual, and especially the students. As a student, it is your responsibility to understand what exactly the constitution is, what our constitution's provisions are, and how it plays a vital role in transformation of the individual as well as the life of the whole society, the whole nation. So in that context, I think the constitution always remains important and always remains relevant. So thank you for listening to me, and I thank all the organizers and the SSMRV College and the Ambedkar Study Center and Research, Ambedkar Study and Research Center for providing me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your insights about the inception of laws and their functioning. Indeed, our comprehension regarding the legislature and their existence in India, and also the immeasurable amount of importance our constitution holds. Certainly a session that enhanced our knowledge. Thanks a lot, sir, for accepting our request again and also addressing us about the importance of constitution. Thank you, sir. Thank you is the best prayer that one could say. It's an expression of extreme gratitude, humility, and understanding. Now I request Mr. Ajay Kumar, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce, to propose vote of thanks.
A very good afternoon to one and all present here. The guest speaker for the day, Professor Hariram sir, Advocate High Court of Karnataka. Dr. S. Anil Kumar, Principal, SSMRV College. Dr. M.S. Nagaraj, Coordinator, IQAC, Head of Department of Commerce, SSMRV College. Professor M. Sarvana, Coordinator, Ambedkar Study Center, SSMRV College. Faculty members, students, and my dear friends. I'm very happy to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of all of you present here. We are grateful to Professor Hariram sir, Advocate, High Court of Karnataka. We feel honored by his presence. Thank you very much, sir, for a wonderful talk on the Constitution of India. You made us realize the importance of law today and how government today is not responding to the Indian Constitution. Instead, they are not following the Constitution today. There are a lot of loopholes that we are, it clearly shows that we are not abiding by the rules and regulations today. So we have to take the Constitution seriously. We'll have to follow the rules and regulations and help uplift the society today. Thank you so much, sir, for an insightful presentation. On behalf of the entire SSMRV fraternity, I would also like to thank our beloved principal for his unconditional support and our beloved head of department. The captain for today's program, Saravana sir, who always organizes program that enlightens students. Thank you so much, Professor Saravana sir, for bringing in such presentations, and an amazing speaker. It is always great to listen to Professor Hariram sir. Thank you so much, sir, once again on behalf of SSMRV College. Thank you, Saravana sir. I thank all the organizing team members for taking efforts in organizing this program and making it successful today. I would like to thank the technical team, Raviraj sir and Hanumant Reddy sir. Thank you very much. I also extend my heartfelt thanks to all my dear colleagues, my dear students. Thank you very much, all of you. Jai Hind, Jai Karnataka. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajay sir. In the words of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, unlike a drop of water which loses its identity when it joins the ocean, man doesn't lose his identity in the society in which he lives. In fact, a man's life is independent. He is born not for development of the society alone, but for the development of himself. Today has been one such remarkable day which ignited our thoughts and gave power to our existence and identities that we carry as Indians. I hope the session reached out to everyone here and made an impact on the comprehension that we carry on our constitution and its significance. I once again thank each and everyone for your valuable participation. Regarding the feedback link to all the participants is shared here in the chat box and also will be shared in the WhatsApp group. Kindly take a moment to fill in the feedback. And regarding your certificates, once the feedback form is filled and sent, you will be receiving the certificates in your registered email IDs. Thank you all.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I have a clarification from Professor Hariram, sir.
Please,
Yes, sir.
Sir, I must say thanks to you for your elaborate and demonstrative talk on Constitution and its applicability. So regarding any government for that matter, even present government, either state or the central government, regarding Article 39C, as you said, the Directive Principles of State Policy, under which the wealth or the economical equality shall not be concentrated with one person like that. That is there, provision is there. That any government, why they are doing as a hypocrites, that they have not made it as a fundamental rights rather than keeping it in the directive principle of state policies. So as a outcome of this seminar, I think they can make it as a proceeding that let any government, either state government or central government, Article 39C must be the fundamental rights rather than directive principles of state policy. For that, what is why they are doing the hypocrisy like this, sir? This is what we focus on that.
Sir, it's a very good question.
I'm sorry, I am asking question after proposing vote of thanks. This is what I need as clarification, and the organizer should also make it as a proceeding and submit to the government, seeing that to bring the transparency. Let the things should be. Look at this one fellow, one businessman whose income is more than the state's the budget. 1.5 times more than the state budget. This should be decentralized, So in that interest, in the larger interest, I am talking in that way.
True, sir. That is in the interest of the nation. That's true. But why this has not been implemented or executed? If you look at the whole political history of this country, even in the first, for example, the first government, the first parliament after independence, if you look at the majority of our parliamentarians, the majority of our parliamentarians were the landlords.
Correct.
So actually, when there were the question of land reforms, and when there was a question of, for example, earlier we had this right to property. It was a fundamental right, but that was removed. That was removed from the fundamental rights because, again, the lawmakers, our politicians, our legislatures, again, they were the people who are going to get affected from it. Because when the law says that you should have not property, not a land of more than this. So when you bring out a law, when you seriously implement that policy, it is the first. They are the first people who are going to lose it. So that is why, see, until the individuals or a people who is really concerned, who is really, concerned about the nation and concerned for the distribution of the property, if those people will be able to come on to the, get into the government, I think those things are possible. And today, especially the present political scenario, you find that how political parties work. How the funding takes place to these political parties. Now, how, for example, today the Ambanis and Adanis are getting favored because during the election, these are the people who sponsor their elections, who spend thousands of crores of money on them. And once these governments comes, irrespective of party, I'm not only talking about the present government. Since the independence, all the parties have been doing the same thing, where they get sponsored from the different industrialists and rich people, and after they come to the power, it is their duty to serve them and not the people.
Yes,
not the
sir,
people.
yes, sir.
So until we people change, we cannot expect our rulers to change, because until we always keep on blaming our politicians as corrupt. But what I believe is politicians are corrupt because we are corrupt. Because it is the government is a reflection of the people. It is a representative of the people. That being so, if they're correct, it represents you. If they're clean, it represents you. So until we people, when you want your government to be corrupt free, first we have to become corruptless. We have to become clean. So the corruption starts from the process of election. So I think until we clean, and whose responsibility is this? I think it is the students, the youth who has to play a major role in the interest of the state. We have to take a stand. We have to take a stand saying that it is not the note, it is the vote which should decide the future of this country. But the notes have been, the currency notes have been the deciding factor of this country. That is why they are playing with the future of the young generation. So the young generation should decide, irrespective of party. Let us not get committed to any one political party. Let us get committed to the people who work for the nation building. So I think if it starts from us, we have to pledge saying that no, my vote is not for note. My vote is for this nation. My vote is for the betterment of this country. I think these things can be possible. It is a very a minor thing, but it plays a very important role. So if I become clean, my society becomes clean. I am corrupt, my society becomes corrupt. So that is why I think the solution, does not lie in the politicians, in the constitution. The solution lies within us. If we become clean, if we become, if we pledge that, yes, this is what it is, this is what we are going to do, I think this is possible, sir. I think, and again, it does not need long time. I think it may need 1 or 2 generations. That's it. 1 or 2 generations, we can build a better future to this country.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, sir. Thank you. One last question, if the audience have, they can put forth before, sir. One last question before we wind up.
Yes, any questions? I think no more questions. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Kindly take a moment to fill in the feedback forms, and you will be receiving your certificates to your registered email IDs. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, Lavanya madam.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Shri sir. Thank you, Gokul sir. Thank you, Satish sir. Thank you, Yellappa sir. Thank you, Nagraj sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shakila madam, Padma madam, Ajay sir. All organizing committee members, thank you. Please come and assemble in near Department of Commerce. We have a cup of tea. Thank you.